Here we are. Welcome in, Bears fans, to this episode of Wear and Tear, a Bears post-game show. So normally if you watch this, right, we do a bunch of categories. There's all this stuff we can talk about, what to look forward to, what we hated, what this, what that. Screw it. We're just going to talk. We're just going to talk about this game in a general blur because that sucked. I mean, the game.
Let's be real, Mason. You and I
awful.
are, generally speaking, regular podcast partners on the Bare Bones podcast here on Windy City Gridiron and Second City Gridiron. And it normally becomes a vamp session that's kind of got guidelines. That's really how we operate. But this is yikes would be the word that comes to mind.
I think that's an accurate word. We are joined today, Danny Meehan, first time on Wear and Tear, but as he said, normally, right, co-host of Bare Bones during the week, where more often than not, we're relatively positive. Today is not going to be that. The Bears lost officially now 29-9 to the Arizona Cardinals, who are 4-4 and came into this with a bottom 5 defense, and your offense was able to muster 9 freaking points.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've echoed it on the show, and I've echoed it to you, and we've had other people say similar, that this eventually is just Shane Waldron getting acclimated to his pieces, learning, and just being slow to adapt. Nah, man. I can't even say that anymore. This is a guy who just feels overwhelmed.
And, I mean, you can make some degree of excuses that make some sense. The offensive line's a wreck. That's not his fault. The depth, the starters are a wreck there. The depth is an issue there. The injuries, you can't necessarily control that. You can't help that Keenan Allen can't separate and looks slow out there. But what you can help is the structure, which is trash.
The route concepts, dude. Everyone's on top of each other and nothing makes sense.
I tweeted this out. Find someone who loves you as much as the Bears love quick outs. Like,
oh my god, dude,
it's awful.
It's them with quick outs was Matt Nagy with mesh.
Oh my god, yes.
Just come on, like, can we try something else? This feels like the Hercules thing, where Hercules is fighting the dragon and just keeps chopping the head off and keeps doubling its head.
And then all of a sudden, you're just surrounded by the like every thousands of heads of the Hydra.
Yeah, and it's like Phil screaming at Herc, "Will you stop with the head slicing thing?"
Oh man, but we'll go into some specifics here. Just our diagnostic study. This is our overall thoughts on the game. I mean, they came out and moved the ball okay to start. Mm-hmm. Then they shot themselves in the foot, which this Bears offense likes to do, whether it's with penalties, whether it's with design issues like we talked about. I mean, there was some reffing stuff. This is a weirdly ref game. We can always talk about that too, but I thought there was 3 pass interferences in a row at one point, which was during Caleb's, I think 6 or 7 missed throws in a row. And then of course, Caleb at times was inaccurate in this game and did miss a couple of checkdowns he should have hit and took a Justin Fields sack. I mean, he was nowhere near not the problem.
Yeah, it feels like I feel like when you watch him on the sideline, and this isn't a body language thing, this is like a demeanor. You can tell he's frustrated. He's and I think it's starting to emanate in the fact of just, F it, I got to do this myself.
And I think I got into a little Twitter fight with someone during this because why not? Watching the game was not going well, so might as well just talk to people on Twitter where, that they were talking.
This will make me feel better.
Yeah, right. Where that was talked about. The discussion of how much of an issue this is Caleb, in terms of Cole Kmet, that came up. So if we were going to do categories, one of my categories was going to be the concussed corner, Cole Kmet having 0 targets in the first half, and he didn't get one in the entire game. So I was
going to say, the last graphic I saw in the fourth quarter, midway before, I said to you, hey, let's just roll it. He hit the Triple Crown, 0 targets, 0 yards, 0 receptions.
And this person I was battling with was saying, yeah, why does Caleb hate Cole? And it's like, look, I got to go back and look at the All-22, which also this person was like, oh, you're one of those All-22 guys? I'm like, yes, because nope, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what's happening downfield on the broadcast.
You can't see things on the broadcast view.
It's insane.
It's why it's hard to say, oh, well, no one's open. It feels like no one's open. And I can also tell you, for as good as Rome is, I don't know what Rome's doing half the time. He feels like he's
lost at times. It's really annoying.
Yeah, it's probably just the rookie learning curve, but there's just so much that's inexcusable. I believe they had metrically the worst pass rush in the NFL coming into today, and had 3 straight sacks on 3 straight plays at one point. It's like that can't happen. Like I get you're beat up and your offensive line is down to the fringes with guys like Larry Borum, who's I'm not even sure a rosterable player at this point, but
Yes, I mean the Cardinals ended up with 6 sacks in total, I believe.
right. And I know I've already started seeing it. The refs didn't lose the Bears this game.
No, the Bears lost this game.
The Bears lost this game, and this is my PSA. I feel like I put it out every show, or at least every other show every year. If all 32 fan bases think the refs hate their team, doesn't that mean the refs hate no one's team?
Except Green Bay. They love Green Bay.
Just like, stop blaming refs. At a certain point, players have to execute and coaches have to coach. And I do find it funny, Mason, that the last 2 weeks of this coaching staff, we had that article written by that Football Breakdown website. I forget the name of it. It's a blog that does a lot of analytics that was touting how good Eberflus has become about adjusting and focusing on the weakness coming into the half and then coming out and shutting down what was working and making them adjusting back to the adjustment. And this is the 2 follow-up performances post that article. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there was some truth to that, right? I mean, they came out and the opposing offense was able to find holes, whether it was in the passing game or the running game, and then like you said, halftime comes out and all of a sudden they lock down. I mean, the Bears had not allowed more than 21 points this year. But I mean, when you come out of halftime and you basically give the "everybody love everybody" quote from Tropic, or from Tropic, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
The Flint Tropic, semi-pro.
Thank you, semi-pro. I almost said Tropic Thunder. That's a totally different movie. When you give that line coming out, like, you can't just be the culture raw defense guy and then allow 29 points to a also not a very good offense. And most of that was on the ground. They had allowed 213 net rushing yards.
Yeah. And I get, like, you're missing Kyler and you're missing Jaquan Brisker, two of your biggest runs.
Missing Montez Sweat.
Billings went out somewhere in the third quarter, I want to say. Like, but at a certain point, next man up still applies. And I wonder what your take is on this, Mason, because I've been kind of marinating on it over the past few weeks or throughout the course of this season, as it were. Like, we've always known that Eberflus is a player's coach. And much in the vein of we like to akin it to Lovey, even just because of the cover 2 stuff, player's coach, this, that, the other. But you go through it, like, and you start looking at the Kyler Gordon screaming early on in the season of, hey, I intercepted that, throw the challenge flag. And he's not getting lined up. It's not going to the next play. Then you have last week with Tyreek Stevenson. And Tyreek Stevenson, that wasn't his first offense this year. It was just the most egregious one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at a certain point, what is players coach and player versus player enablement? Like, you're still a coach. You still have to be able to snatch someone's collar when that time comes.
Well, I think you could extend that even just a little further. I mean, early in the year when you had players who were clamoring to coach us hard, I mean, that was coming specifically on offense from Shane Waldron, but that trickles down. That's a head coach downward thing. And so, like you said, this is not the first time this has popped up. This is not, and you want to give Flus some leeway in terms of early stuff, right? The 0-17 away record, you're like, whatever, that first year was a joke. That was a total teardown. Second year, same-ish thing. I mean, you're still trying to create a team that's decent to improve that roster. But at some point, the buck has to stop. And if you, as the head coach, right, are not in charge of the most important part of the team, arguably, which is the culture of it, you can't control that. If you're not directly in charge of the offense in an offensive league, you better be firing on all cylinders and the other things. And clearly that is not the case when one of your starting corners did what he did last week, reacted the way that he did. He actually had a good game today, by the way. Tyreek Stevenson was fine. That's not the reason the Bears
he
lost.
wasn't the issue.
Yeah, but when you look at all those, and you look at the team, they quit.
They laid down.
They quit. That at the end of the game, at the end of the half, excuse me, where you let up that touchdown run, that is not this Bears defense going 100% firing all cylinders. And he admits that he had the wrong play call, where he shouldn't have gone with as aggressive an approach as he did. It's kind of that whole he thought he learned. Oh, I'm learned from last week because everyone was saying I should have rushed harder, have been at the end of the game and not allowed that. These are not the same situations. They're different.
It's the much less aggressive version of Matt Nagy saying, "Hey, you didn't bring me here to run the I formation," and the next week he comes out running nothing but I formation.
All right, we're going to take a quick moment since we're not doing the normal format, and I'm going to do an ad read because we're doing an ad read for reasons. We got that dog in us, and this time I'm not playing the sound because it messed up your phone last time. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. I have used multiple sites and apps to enhance my game day, and Underdog is quite unique. Something pretty cool is their vulture protection. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and they get vultured, they will rescue your entry. Define a vulture as a rushing touchdown scored by a player not designated as a running back. Red Zone Rush, a game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right or for yes and left for no. Simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted, and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. This season, Underdog is going to be a running special promo or bonus almost every single day, such as profit boosts. Pump up your winnings in just a tap when you apply the boost to eligible entries. Discounts. You'll get adjusted projections on certain player stats to give you a better shot at Big W. Free picks. They're basically a sure thing. A player just has to get higher than 0.5, let's say, passing yards for that selection to win. Plus, all new users get a free pick. Download the app today and use code CITY, C-I-T-Y, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every hair-raising touchdown just selects higher or lower on Underdog. It must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Avoid in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 3342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Hey, that wasn't too bad considering I'm drinking a barrel-aged beer.
That was beautifully read, Mason. There's that college education, hard at work.
All those years and all that money just to read that adequately. So let's just take some more pointy questions about the game and then questions going forward, because whatever, the game was gross. It's kind of whatever. We don't need to talk about it generally. So instead, where do you feel Caleb is? Are you taking just Caleb and his performance over since the beginning of the season, are you okay with where he's at? Is he lesser than you need him to be, knowing what's around him? Where do you have Caleb at?
So Caleb, I think multiple things can be true. Caleb, I think, is showing his eyes are going where they need to be. Like, today notwithstanding, I don't want to speak on today's game too much, just because, again, I don't really know what to say. It feels almost like it's going to be a burn the tape game because it was just egregious on all fronts. But Caleb has the moments you want to see. But this season isn't about moral victories, man. All the hubbub and all the crap we heard about, this is the best supporting cast the number 1 overall pick has ever had. And this is what it looks like. Caleb obviously shoulders some responsibility. He has not been accurate outside of short and intermediate stuff. Even the deep ball he hit early in the game, he floated it and left it short. He didn't hit him in stride.
Yep.
Like, at a certain point, he's got to start hitting those. And it feels like he's aiming, not throwing, almost. Like, it's like he's trying to, like, get a feel for where his release point should be on those deeper routes versus just, cracking the whip, as it were, just yanking it, just let it fly. But I also think there's some things we need to see. He can't hold the ball. Sometimes you got to know when to say die. Like the Fieldian sack, I get he's frustrated, he's trying to make something happen, but it's not acceptable.
And I have a tough time trying to differentiate, because like you could take that Fieldian one and definitely say that needs to be better for sure. I have a harder time as a whole trying to say sack wise what he should or shouldn't be doing, because you want him extending plays, and you saw multiple times today where he did stuff where it's like, I can't believe he got out of that, and create opportunities down the field still. So the question becomes, can you really be mad when it doesn't work?
Right.
So
Hey,
like
Mason,
that's tough for me.
I hate to cut you short. We got toned out. I am at work, so I got to go do my job now.
All right, Dan's gonna go do his real job, and I'm gonna finish up the rest of the show. Thanks for popping in, Danny.
Thanks, Mason. No problem. See ya.
Bye. All right, cool. So I'm going to just run through some of this conversation that we were going to have with Danny. Again, he's helping with people, so he needed to run. But if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and be a part of this, because this can be a little, hopefully, cathartic for us, because that was a rough game. But yeah, so like Danny said, I agree that, like, for me, Caleb isn't the problem, but there are things that I thought were going to be better at this point. The deep ball actually a bit better. How much of that is just simply Caleb, and how much of that is his process sped up because of a lack of protection that's been there since the beginning, right? I mean, this offensive line was never actually even there was never a snap where this offensive line really has been what they thought it would be, or receivers. I think if you watch, for example, JT O'Sullivan, he consistently has conversations, and you can argue this either way, that he circles DJ Moore and says, "Is this a true wide receiver one?" I bring that up because I think that at times there's a lack of consistency in his route running in terms of the speed. So on some of those deep balls, is he always going the 100%, or at least the percentage that you need to go? When it comes to, you can go down the line with that. You got Keenan Allen, who clearly is not the Keenan Allen of old. He's lost a step. He still has really good hands, besides a drop today. That absolutely could have been a big shift in the game. But he is not able to create space like he did before. And then you have Rome. We touched on that. Rome is definitely one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic receiver. Big body, and it needs to be on the field more. For example, in 12 personnel, absolutely needs to be on there more versus having Keenan out there. However, when you look back, sometimes it definitely looks like he's in the wrong place, right? That he's going inside on a go instead of outside, that he's floating when he shouldn't. There's things like that. So I think that has to be accounted for some of the accuracy issues. And at the end of the day, too, Caleb does need to be more accurate. I'll be curious to see what the time to pressure was for this game. Because I'm going to bring Danny back in, apparently. He lied to us. I'll be curious to see what the time to pressure for this game was, because it seemed pretty consistently that Caleb was getting pressured almost immediately. You can't operate like that, especially when you're a rookie.
Sometimes this job freaks you with the okie doke. So here I am.
So now you guys don't have to listen to just me for the next, 10 or so minutes. But I was still I had moved on. We talked about receivers. I talked about the offensive line. You probably just heard that. Yes, you have injuries, but I mean, really, it was just tackle right now and you cannot be letting up pressure as immediately as was occurring today.
Dude, they were having pressure immediately on play action, where there wasn't even like a hesitation of, like, I know all the metrics say, like, oh, even if the running game isn't established, you can play action that's going to make someone freeze. They weren't even freezing at points. Like, they were just teeing off. It's embarrassing. Like, I don't know how else to describe how just disjointed this offense feels. And I hate that I'm saying this again in 2024. It's not supposed to feel this way. You're supposed to have a representative NFL play call. You're supposed to have the generational quarterback prospect, who I think is going to end up being fine and very good, if not great, when it's all said and done. But something isn't working. And it feels like it almost all stems from the coaching staff. You should not, with this offensive roster, looking at just the names, even, be struggling to muster up points.
Right. I mean, when you have a situation where, and DeAndre Swift has been probably the only consistent bright spot in the last 4 or 5 weeks on this
He's been
team.
awesome. He's been awesome.
Roshan, what today? How many carries? He had 13 yards on 3 attempts. The backups for the Cardinals, DeMarcado, this is a little bias shifted, of course, because of that long run, but he had 4 attempts for 59 yards. Trey Benson had 8 attempts for 37 yards, averaging 4.6. So, and obviously they're not talking about James Conner yet, but they just ran gunshot on you. And this offense was supposed to be a run into pass team where Caleb then can jib jive and do all the things that he wants to do. The schematically that what this run game is so inconsistent that you can't do it.
Yeah, you can't. And it just feels like there's no rhyme or reason. Like, I just don't know. And I'm struggling again. Like, what do they do well? Like, I feel like we're running back yet another season that we don't have a play that they know they need 4 yards on. Let's go get 4 yards.
No. And then if you do have a play where something like that happens, it ends up getting brought back for some kind of penalty. And again, some of the penalties were weird today. Absolutely. Like the special teams one, that barely gets called, and it's not really
the chop block that I don't think was a chalk block. Like, it looked like he hit him in the hip/gut to me. But
right. But and then even the one on Larry Borum where you had the formation issue. Arguably, you could say that was or wasn't one, but there are too many times where specifically DJ Moore gets a lot of catches, and then all of a sudden it's not a catch because of some kind of penalty. But that boils down to, again, the coaching, and that all these points we keep talking about comes back down to the coaching, which is a problem.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it. When you're the CEO, defensive head coach, what's the thing you're supposed to be good at? Not committing penalties. That's supposed to be the thing because it mitigates mistakes. It lessens the burden on other things.
And with a team like this, your room for error is not very big.
The Cardinals aren't a good football team.
No, they're not.
That's the part that's most frustrating.
No. And I didn't want to be doom and gloom coming into this game, or this was a must win, but because of what you have ahead of you in terms of playing all of your division games, where you have 3 teams between the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings, who are all balanced teams and all can score a lot of points and all can play at least decent defensively. I mean, you needed to win these next 2 and then go 3-3 in your division. So,
and what is Brian Flores going to do to this poor offense?
Oh my God, I've had those 2 games circled for so long now, just because I'm terrified.
Brian Flores is one of the best defensive play callers in football and does like shit that would make Steve Spagnuolo blush schematically. Like, there's a certain level of I don't give a fuck. We're going to do this because I want to. And he's going to put Shane Waldron in a blender.
And you might luck out where, I mean, Jordan Love looks like a problem today just because he shouldn't be playing with his injury. Who knows if he'll be healthy in 2 weeks and what ultimately that's going to look like.
It's almost like coming back from a grade. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to get myself worked up over an athlete coming back and doctor letting him play.
But I'm not the guy, at least with this team in this iteration, that's looking for, hey, if you can get some breaks, if this guy can get hurt, if they can have an off day here, because you need to see what this team ultimately is and what it is going to do with when you don't have all these breaks going for you, right? Because that's going to tell you truly how your team is. It's the mirage of playing the Jaguars and the Panthers. Everyone got excited. I was a part of that, thinking, okay, we're building something. And then it turns out when you actually play decent teams, you aren't. So if for some reason Jordan Love is either not playing or not playing fully, in terms of how well he could play, and you pull out a win against the Patriots and a win against the Packers, I'm not going to feel great about it still.
No, and you shouldn't feel great about it. Like, it's just, nothing feels the way it should right now. And you and I were both in agreement, and I was one of the bigger Eberflus supporters when he first got hired because it was, admittedly, I said it at the time, it could be just a return to a feeling of something I know, I understand to some extent. But I also thought you needed a grown up in the room. This no longer feels like a grown up in the room.
No, that went out the door for me when, he basically just took no accountability whatsoever for last week and then doubled down and then tripled down on it. That is not what your CEO, defensive head coach does. I mean, look back at the Dan Campbell example. I can't remember exactly what game it was for them, but I mean, he immediately owned up to his problems. And he does it time in and time out, whether it's, flag decisions, timeout decisions, putting his guys in a position to win. He owns up when he doesn't do that. And Eberflus really has never done that.
No. And it's just, they should have fired him last offseason. And I know there was probably some ownership at stake. I don't believe to the extent some others do that firing him was just completely off the table. They met for 3 days or 4 days. It was clearly on the table.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. So this is looking really far ahead. So I'm out on Flus. We're done. I'm mentally done.
I'm done too. And it just sucks that we're doing this again.
So because the Bears don't do it, the Bears do not fire head coaches.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, Mark Trestman had back-to-back 50 burgers dropped on him, and they still didn't fire him. And that was a team that had quit weeks into that season. They benched Jay Cutler in favor of playing Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah.
So don't happen.
Keeping that in mind, let's move on to whatever the rest of the season happens. You're hoping Caleb just basically doesn't get hurt, and you're hoping that you can just see him continue to develop as best as he can in this poor infrastructure. I had a couple, because all my patients know that obviously I do this and that I'm a big Bears person, and it sucks going in to the clinic on Mondays because I talk to 1,000 people about the Bears. It's terrible.
I have the same conversation about 10 different ways.
Exactly. And one of them said, I know that you, as in me, are looking at the Ben Johnson hiring, and I don't think it's going to happen because of how cheap the Bears are. Do you think that there's any opportunity that the Bears actually swing big when Eberflus is fired? And I'm not even saying specifically Ben Johnson, that's my pick, but would pay more than they normally would for their head coach to try to support Caleb in this offense?
Ben Johnson should be every fan's pick of every team. Now, I will say he's not coming with that offensive line. So
there's a part of that. Yep.
They're a big part of that. But I have a hard time. Even if he's only, Mike McDonald got 9 or 10 million, and I would tell you right now, still to your face, that Mike McDonald's the same caliber of coaching prospect Ben Johnson is right now. Just different sides of the ball. But I have a hard time getting there, man. You're talking $9-10 million a year for a head coach who hasn't proven it yet.
Because I have to be, right? I have to hope and come at it from that perspective. So I've created the narrative in my head where you have now been embarrassed the last couple head coaching hires, and that potential, and especially now, and who knows, but with Kevin Warren there, I think my savior is Kevin Warren. Will Kevin Warren just say, open up the damn checkbook? We will figure out a way to make the money work. We're looking to build a new stadium. We're looking to generate more revenue. We'll make it work. Pay what we need to make this team a winning team. That is my hope.
That's what we all have to kind of hope for in general. But to quote, Shawshank Redemption, hope is a dangerous thing. Hope can drive a man crazy, kind of thing. It's not unfounded. I mean, Matt Nagy was a pretty sought-after head coaching prospect. People forget that. Going back years now, but Dave Wanstead, when they hired him, was the name of head coaching prospects back then. Like, it's not like they've never gone and gotten the hot shot. It's just not worked. Like, now Ben Johnson might be in a category of his own, but I do, for as good as we all think he is, like, Matt Nagy was the hot shot offensive mind. People forget for a time, Adam Gase was like the offensive guy you had to have coming out of Denver. And then John Fox was able to sway him into being the offensive coordinator, and he was turning down jobs to go call plays for Jay Cutler for a year.
I will say too that Matt Nagy year, my 3 names I had that I wanted were in no particular order: John DeFilippo, Matt Patricia, and Josh McDaniels. So I clearly shouldn't be hiring anyone because all 3 of those would have been terrible.
The last 2 head coaches the Bears have hired have been the guy I wanted in Matt Nagy and Matt Eberflus. Don't hire who I want because you'll get them, but they're not good.
But it's a terrible choice. All right, last question, then we're going to wrap up the show. Looking ahead, so we're talking Patriots game here now. What is the best case scenario for you for that Patriots game? And then actually, I'm going to make a 2-parter. And then, what is the best case scenario for you for the divisional games?
It's loaded. Best case scenario for the Patriots game, you got to right the ship and you got to win games. I know, lose games, fire Eberflus. I think Eberflus is fired. It's just getting there at this point. I think he could get to the first round of the playoffs in a miracle and get knocked out, and they would still be like, all right, thank you for your service, Matt. Because they're not going to run him back on no extension. And I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong. I thought it was more likely that coming into the season he was going to be like Bears Sean McDermott than it was this. And it looked early on like that wasn't the worst call.
Yeah.
And then last week happened. And it's just it's funny how it all unravels so fast. As far as division, you're clearly the worst team in this division. Clearly. The Lions are styling on people. Matt LaFleur might be the best in the game right now at what he's doing.
Oh man, he's so good.
He's awesome, and Kevin O'Connell might not be far behind.
Oh, I thought of another question I'm going to ask you after we finish that because it's a good one.
I think they're going to probably win in total at least 2 of them in this year, just because the talent eventually is going to have to start winning in spite of. And I think Caleb is going to just keep getting better. He's had bad moments. Rookies had bad moments. And for all the stuff we talked about CJ Stroud, like CJ Stroud looks broken right now. Like in year 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, he's undergoing some growing pains, but he's still, there's enough there where it's not searching for a moment here or there. There's enough seeing with his eyes on the all-22 and what the metrics are showing you where he's going to be fine. He's going to be really good. It's just, you got to survive. This feels like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, just survive. But that's my expectation. Win a couple of them and just don't get embarrassed. Play hard. Now, I don't know because we saw the Eberflus Bears lay down early in his second season, and they came back. But, man, they didn't lay down today, and that's not a good look.
I'm not usually very big in the whole lose games thing, just because I think winning is a mentality and winning is a habit.
Winning's a mentality, winning's a habit, absolutely.
So I just need a couple of embarrassing losses that I think are going to happen regardless. So I'm in the same boat for the most part. Go out and beat a Patriots team that you're just more talented than. That matters. And then win 2-3 games in your division because you always play the Lions relatively well, even though they're just killing people this year offensively. It's insane.
Styling on people. It's awesome.
So can you win 2 or 3 of those games? Because you cannot make losing a habit, especially for Caleb.
Right. And that's that's where the tanking thing and the lose for the betterment of the franchise has never made sense to me. and the idea of there may not be a savior in any draft. And losing can become a habit. When you just say it's okay to lose, like a lot of your primary pieces, especially this year, are here for a while. And you're hoping they're here for a while. You hope they extend Kyler Gordon. You want them to be able to extend Jaquan Brisker, guys of that nature. Like, and you can't just say, hey, it's okay to lose. You want them to compete. You want them to win.
So the last question I wanted to ask was, here we go. Where does Matt Eberflus rank as a head coach in the NFC North when you also include coordinators?
Well, he's clearly last of the head coaches. I
At a
think
Bear, yep, for sure.
Flores is better than him.
I would agree.
Obviously, Ben Johnson is better than him. So he's at the very least 7. I think you can make the argument that there's a case to be made for the Green Bay defensive coordinator who they brought from Boston College.
Jeff Hafley.
Jeff Hafley. Now, do I think he's better than Eberflus? No. Eberflus is so to be clear, he's a bad head coach. He's going to have a defensive coordinator job in 5 minutes once he's fired because he's a really good defensive coordinator. Some guys get over promoted, and it just so happens the Bears seemingly do it a lot.
So at a minimum, we can say that he's the 6th at a minimum, potentially 7th.
Mm-hmm.
That is not how you build a team. Simple as that.
Correct.
All right, that's how we're leaving the show.
We're this. You know what this feels like? It feels like the Family Guy gif of Peter and Lois playing golf and him just picking the bag of clubs up and say, "We are having fun."
You want it to be different, right? I mean, no, we don't want to be sitting here having this conversation, doing the show like this, and this isn't us doomering anything. We're just looking at what's in front of us. This right. is what it is.
And I see the question here from Joseph Anello. Could it be that Waldron has too many weapons? No, it's not. Keenan Allen is so clearly cooked right now. It feels like for a guy who was already slow, he just looks slow.
And ultimately, I don't know because right now, right? I mean, Keenan is in there in 12 personnel. So is that a purely Shane Waldron? I'm going to use Keenan Allen because he's the veteran and he's been there and he deserves it kind of thing. Or is there other conversations or a feeling that Waldron feels like he has to put him there, whether it's to keep Keenan Allen engaged or if there's other individuals saying this is how it should be. Or regardless, it's not working.
Or is it them seeing the same thing the armchair all-22 guys like us are seeing, where Rome just can't be trusted to do the correct things on a down-to-down basis right now. Even if he is, for my money, honestly, he might be better than DJ Moore on a talent level right now. But it's just talent is exactly that. It's talent. It's unrefined. It's not ready to go do that on a consistent basis. I didn't think we'd be here. I really didn't.
No, I truly thought at the beginning of the year, I think I picked the Bears to win 10 games. I think
I picked them to win 9.
And that 9-10 window seemed it's like such a reachable goal, especially considering how many games they won last year with a very similar, with a worse team, arguably.
Yeah.
But, here we are. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, the last thing I want this to become is blaming injuries too. You know who else is hurt in the NFL? Everybody. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's nicked up. Everyone's banged up. I want to believe it's going to get a little bit better, but I just don't. I'm so clear. Basically, my biggest issue will just come back to Shane Waldron. He's who everybody wanted.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had him as my number 1.
And this feels like such a false bill of sale. You got bad goods. you were so excited to get this new shiny offensive coordinator, and it's just whatever.
Well, if you want, you could look forward to, look at the fact Detroit beat Green Bay. So that's fun. If you want to circle that as your Sunday highlight, you can look at what's going to happen tonight. I don't know. Can Indy with Joe Flacco energy upset the Vikings? That might be fun for you. You could look at that. But unfortunately, right now, the Bears are not giving you a lot to be excited about. And it's pretty obvious if you look at strength of schedule and how the other teams are playing, it's not going to get necessarily prettier. So, get your vomit bag ready. All right. That's it. We're out of here. Spend your Sundays doing something other than watching this terrible team, probably. We'll still be here, though. We're going to be doing our preview shows every Thursday. We're going to be doing our post-game shows every Sunday because we are gluttons for punishment.
We hate watch, so you don't have to.
Yeah. All right. Bear down, everyone.